So before I go any further, I have to thank a friend of mine, Levan Brown, for popping a few beers in my PayPal. Much appreciated, Captain. So, concerned citizen, yes. Meanwhile, in Tesco's England yesterday, take whatever you want, whenever you want. and look, I've said it for years. Look, it's deliberate and by design. It wasn't that long ago, people were quite ashamed about stealing anything. Yeah, even in the 80s, I remember that you didn't have security supermarkets. You really didn't. The staff, the male staff, would take care of that one. Yeah, there was a code that was over a tannoy that you were told to, be aware of. And as soon as you heard it, you made your way to the tills. That was it. And you would, dissuade the individual, whoever they may be, from leaving. And minutes later, funnily enough, the cops would turn up, and things were resolved. That was it. Yeah. But over time, the perceived care bears were like, no, what we need to focus on, it's not that the fact that they're thieving fox. No. We've got to look into their background. We've got to look at, there was a time not that long ago where if you're a thieving fuck, you're a thieving fuck, and that's about it. And, let's just say back then there was more focus on, removing these people from society, yeah? In the form of, whatever prison sentences, blah, blah, blah. But over the last few decades, the trouble is, and how people haven't worked this out. The courts are a business. They quite literally tell you it's a business, yeah? So rather than dissuading potential court business and, various people masquerade as the righteous and, do you have contrition? It's a business. Even when it came to stewards, door stewards, security, they created this thing called the SIA, roughly circa about 2007. Did it generally make the door steward industry that much better? No, what it did change was people had to pay to get a ticket, to get a job, blah, 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 and people could go, well, that's the same in so many other industries, but when you look at where we are, and have been, you could successfully argue for the last few years, but especially now. Remember, people can now confidently walk into said supermarkets and independent shops and just thieve away. And the very people that are employed to, the wee clue in the job, door security, yeah? Let me under fair use play you but one of many examples. Tesco staff standing there. Fit young man, I'm guessing, although, this Bluetooth stuff. Has anybody done any, studies on the health effects and its effect on the blood-brain barrier? You could go into the detail, but fuck me. The security, hands in pockets. This is where we're at, And just fucking, fill a bag and off they go. And they're more focused on phones and, what the fuck is security there for? Out that way, sir. Seriously, this is part and parcel of this destabilization. It's absolutely there in plain sight. Remember, why the fuck should cameras be everywhere? Even at checkouts now, supermarkets, all the rest of it, the cameras, quite literally self-service, as you see more of it being rolled out by the day. And remember, people have been groomed into this for at least a couple of decades and a half, yeah? Over time. To bring about this order out of chaos and Chinese-style social credit score systems and cameras everywhere. And, we're doing this all to keep people safe. We should never have been here in the first place. Never. And how many of them are underling occultist activists? Seriously, this is yet again assault on common sense, that people are reprogrammed to not do the right thing. That scumbags like that, oh look, you don't know their background, and all these communistic tossbags are like, you don't know what their life. You're a thieving fuck. That's what you are. And as I've said over the years, I would be a bit more, because obviously what goes for laws now fail vastly, as they're there to well do, by the supposed Care Bears. And honestly, I'd have something like the fucking Birch, Isle of Man, blah blah blah. See, if they actually felt some fucking pain, for example, and who in the population wouldn't say, well, actually, if it actually stops these thieving bastards, these, career criminals, well, playing victims, because all this naivety about, well, it's a corporation, they can take it on the chin. They're stealing it at independent shops, as well as all this nonsense. And they're getting away with it. Most people on the street, most of the population a few decades ago would have stopped that fucker in his tracks. Yeah? Seriously. It's deliberate destruction of everything to do with common sense to bring order out of chaos. There's no two doubts about it. It's a fucking disgrace. And I'll speak to you soon.